योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचाम् मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिम् गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः हरिः ओम्. So today we start with Sutra 3.44. The sutra is as follows. स्थूल स्वरूप सूक्ष्म अन्वय अर्थवत्व संयमात् भूतजयः. So this is about another Sanyama as per the pattern in most of the sutras in this Pada, the Vibhuti Pada. The another Sanyama and mention of the associated Siddhi. Sanyama is the triad of Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi as we have seen, and Siddhi is the attainment thereof. Attainment that is extraordinary, beyond worldly attainment. So what is the object of Sanyama here? It is Sthula, Swarupa, Sukshma, Anvaya, Arthavatva. These different aspects as far as the bhutas are concerned. The bhuta refers to the Prithvi, Aap, Tej, Vayu, Akash, the five elements as it is said, or the Panchamahabhutas, etc. So for those bhuta tattvas, there are five aspects. There is a Sthula aspect, Swarupa aspect, Sukshma aspect, Anvaya aspect, Arthavatva aspect. Sanyama on all of them leads to a certain siddhi which is known as bhuta jayaha. So we will be looking at Vyasa's Bhashya, which goes into this in detail. But very quickly, to understand the various terms, Sthula, which is that aspect which is accessible to our senses, that is known as Indriya Gocharaha. So when the senses are able to see, hear, etc., that whatever aspect can be seen, heard, touched, and so on, those are known as Indriya Gochara. The Sthula refers to, or gross, refers to those aspects which can be grasped by the Indriyas. Swarupa is the essential form. Also here corresponds to Samanya, which is common in all the bhutas. So it is the essential form. So for example, every instance of the bhutas may have things that differ among them, but there is a part that is always present, always common. So that is Samanya, and that is the essential Swarupa of the bhutas. So that is the Swarupa. Sukshma, as we will see later, they refer to the Tanmatras. You have seen Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasagandha. Tanmatras, which is usually the term Sukshma is referred to or is used for things that are known as Sakshat Karanam. What leads to the ability to directly perceive, the Sakshat Kara, the cause of that, the Hetu of that, Sakshat Karanam, that is referred to as Sukshma. And here the Tanmatras are the Sukshma aspect of the bhutas. Anvaya is something that is sort of how it is constituted. So here the constitution of all the bhutas and everything that is based off Prakriti is the Sattva Rajatama aspects, which are referred to as gunas, but as we have seen in the Sankhya Yoga system, these are dravyas. So there are actual entities that constitutes the fabric of Prakriti and everything that evolves from it. So since bhutas are evolved from Prakriti, the Anvaya aspect of them is the constitution in terms of sattva rajatama. Arthavatva is the aspect of what is known as prayojanam. What is it for? It is meant for something. So that is known as arthavat. So that aspect is known as arthavatva. So see how if one has to do sanyama on the bhutas, all these aspects have to be encompassed. And when that happens, says the sutra, the yogi attains bhuta jayaha. So he is able to conquer the bhutas, so to speak. And we will also see, Vyasa will explain to us what bhuta jaya refers to. And it continues in the next sutra, etc. and so on. So we will be seeing that. So, Sthula Swarupa Sukshma Anvaya Arthavatva Sanyamat Bhuta Jayaha. That is the sutra.
So the sutra is related to previous sutra. How? Because the previous sutra spoke about Mahavideha Vritti. And we saw what is that Mahavideha Vritti. It's a transcendent state of the mind, psyche, consciousness. So when the mind, psyche, consciousness is on a transcendent plane, the yogi has a different view of the things around, which is totally different than the view that we common men and the mortals have. We see the things as they appear. Horse is a horse, mountain is a mountain, river is a river, rose is a rose, human being is a human being. We see the things as they appear. And we cannot be having much more scanning vision than this as mortals. So our knowledge is limited to empirical sphere. But with Mahavideha Vritti, we have seen several vrittis mentioned by Patanjali. In the first chapter, we had considered some of the vrittis. They are also called samvit. So this Videha Vritti is a kind of samvit where the yogi is on a higher pedestal of consciousness. And therefore the vision of the yogi is different. And vision of the yogi is also having a depth. Like if you are seeing something from, say, ground level, we can see the things up to an extent. But if we get on an elevated platform, on a column, 10 meters high, 100 meters high, 500 meters high, hilltop, mountain top, etc., our horizon extends. So we as mortals can only have the increase in the horizon. The higher we go, the greater radius that we are able to sight. From the ground level, we cannot be sighting so much, so we get onto the terrace top, and then we get a greater view. So our vision can only extend that way. The horizon will only extend for us. However, we mortals cannot have the depth increased. But for a yogi, the depth of knowledge also increases. And with the depth of knowledge increasing, he will be not only seeing the things as they appear, but as they are, not only as they are quintessentially are, and essentially are. So that's why here we are able to cite the example that a yogi is able to have the depth, and therefore he is able to penetrate. An object is made up of elements, and we stop there. Physics will stop there. It will say it is either gaseous matter or solid matter or liquid matter. And it will go little beyond. It will speak about some elements there. And it will extend, scientists will go beyond and tell us about nucleus, an atom and the nucleus. And not beyond. And that is why this is called metaphysics. So the yogi has a depth and scanning vision, scanning intelligence, scanning penetration, And this is the example that comes up here, that is Patanjali speaking about the 5 forms of the elements which are metaphysical in status and nature. And there are 5 forms of these elements. And that is what is being spoken of in the sutra. And this is because of that yogi's level of consciousness, which is quite transcendent compared to ours, which is quite mundane and empirical, temporal. And that's the scanning ability that yogi gets. Therefore, he looks into and he is able to discern into the nature, essential aspect of the elements, and therefore 5 forms are being mentioned. So this is a sutra which is pertaining to the metaphysics of yoga system, yoga darshana, that is 5 elements. It doesn't stop just mentioning the 5 elements, Prithvi, Aptej, Vayu, Akash, but gives the exploration of the 5 forms, because nothing is appearanceable form. It is metaphysics. There is no appearanceable form. So therefore it starts with the gross, which is not visible, yet it is gross. That is Sthula, and then Swarupa, and then Sukshma, and then Anmaya, and Arthavatva. And you just heard the basic explanation of these 5 forms, and we will be going further when we look into the Vyasa Bhashya. But anyway, the point is, because of transcendent state, Videha, Mahavideha Vritti, that too akalpita kind, which we discussed in the previous session, the yogi's mind is etherealized, and therefore he has insights, foresights, unimaginable to mortal intelligence. Okay.
So Vyasa begins. He says, Tatra Parthivadyaha Shabdadayo Visheshaha Saha Akaradibhihi Dharmaihi Sthula Shabdena Paribhashitaha Etat Bhutanam Pratamam Rupam. So he is now referring to the first among the ones referred to in the sutra, which is the Sthula. So what about the Sthula? He says, Tatra Parthivadyaha Shabdadayo Visheshaha. So Parthivadyaha means Parthivadhi, related to Prithvi, etc. Which means related to Prithvi, related to Jala, related to Agni, related to Vayu, related to Akasha. So Parthivadyaha. What further? Parthivadyaha Shabdadayaha Visheshaha. So Visheshaha means the specifics as opposed to the generals. So for example, there are specifics to the Shabda. There could be, as it is said, Shajja Gandharadi Shabda Visheshaha. So different tones. So Shajja and Gandhara are musical notes. But in general, the Shabdas or the sounds can vary. Shitoshnadi Sparsha Visheshaha. So for Sparsha or touch, the hot and cold are Visheshas. Nilapitadi Rupa Visheshaha. So for the Rupa, the form, there is a color, there is a black or blue, yellow, etc. Kashaya Madhuradi Rasa Visheshaha. So different tastes. Surabhi Asurabhi Ityadi Gandha Visheshaha. So for the smell also there is pleasant, unpleasant and various varieties. So Parthivadyaha Shabdadaya Visheshaha. And furthermore, as we had seen earlier, the Prithvi element is said to have all these 5, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Whereas the Jala element has everything except the Gandha. It is Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa. The Agni element does not have Rasa, it is Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa. Vayu element is Shabda and Sparsha. And the Akasha element, the Tanmatra, is Shabda. So this is something that we have seen. Now, Parthivadyaha Shabdadayo Visheshaha Saha Akaradibhihi Dharmaihi. So the Visheshas along with the certain attributes, dharmas, or certain characteristics that are common to each element. Saha akaradibhihi dharmaihi. So what are these common characteristics? It is said akaradi. Akara means form. So each of the elements have certain common aspects or dharmas, characteristics. So the related Shabdadi Vishayas along with these common characteristics. So the combination, these are referred to by the term sthula. So that is why it says Saha Akaradi Dharmaihi Sthula Shabdena Paribhashitaha. Paribhashita means it is defined. It's like a technical term. It is interpreted, Sthula is interpreted to be so. Etat Bhutanam Pratamam Rupam. This is the first form among the ones given, which is Sthula. So there are these Akaradi Dharmas. So what is this referring to? This is something we have not seen earlier. So now each of these elements have different dharmas or attributes. For example, the Prithvi element is said to have 11 dharmas. The first being Akara, and that is why it is referred to as Akaradi. So Akara Adi Yasya Saha. So that series which begins with Akara. So Akara, etc. So what is it? So for Prithvi it is Akaro Gauravam Rauksham Varanam Sthairyameva Sthitibheda Kshamakashnyam Katinyam Sarvabhogyata. So we will not go in too much detail here, but form, weight, Gauravam, Rauksham, hardness, dryness, Varanam, the characteristic of being able to cover things, that is blocking the perception, Sthiryam, solidity, stability, Sthitibheda or Vrittibheda, being present in different forms, Kshama, so being able to tolerate, to forgive. For example, the Prithvi is said to be the embodiment of forgiveness. All kinds of activities are happening on it, but the Prithvi Mata is completely tolerating everything and forgiving, so Kshama. But that is about Mother Earth. But the element itself is said to have the characteristic of the ability to tolerate without getting agitated. So that is Kshama. Karshnyam. Karshnyam is, in some sense, it is darkness, blackness, blocking the ability to perceive. So that is also one of the characteristics of the Prithvi element. Katinyam, hardness. Sarva bhogyata, being able to experience it in all ways. It has all the five senses can perceive it. Shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha. So it is bhogya in all, by through all means. So those are said to be the 11 dharmas of Prithvi. So saha akaradibihi dharmaihi, when Vyasa says, this is what is being referred to. Similarly for Jala. So Jala is said to have 10 dharmas. Snehas, Saukshmyam, Prabha, Shaukalyam, Mardavam, Gauravam, Chayat, Shaityam, Raksha, Pavitratvam, Sandanam, Chaudaka Gunaha. So what are these Udakaha Gunaha? Udaka means Jala, water element. So Sneha, softness. Saukshmyam, subtlety. Prabha, luster. Shauklyam, whiteness, so to speak. So Shukla is usually translated as white. You can say brightness, whiteness. Mardavam, softness. Gauravam, weight. Shaityam, coldness. Raksha, the ability to protect. So this is also, there is a, just like Prithvi has Kshama, which is a bit of a esoteric dharma. Here there is Raksha, ability to protect. Pavitratvam, essential purity. Often water is used not just, of course we use water for cleaning, but there is an essential purity which is also there in puja and rites, etc. So that is one of the characteristics from a completeness, not just physical characteristics, but physical, esoteric, etc. All kinds of characteristics. So pavitratvam, purity. Sandhanam, the ability to join or unite. So all, or heal even, that is also sandhanam. So all of these are characteristics of water. So when Vyasa says the Shabdadi Visheshaha Sah Akaradi Dharmaihi. These are the dharmas. Similarly, for Agni, the fire element, it is said to have 8 dharmas. Urdhvabhag Pachakam, Dagdhru Pavakam, Lagubhaswaram, Pradhvansyojasvi Vaitejah Purvabhyam Bhinna Lakshanam. So, what are these Lakshana of Teja element, Agni or Vanni? Urdhvabhag. It is sort of an upward movement. Pachakam, ability to digest. Now digest, so there is said to be the fire in the belly that digests. But in general, cook. So transform the elements into a form that can be consumed. So consume. So that is Pachakam. Dagdhru, the ability to burn. Pavakam, heat. Lagu, it is light in nature. Bhasvaram, shining. Pradhonsa, being able to destroy. Ojasvi, having ojas. Ojas is a certain luster of bala. So it has a sort of a radiant strength that it has. So these are the dharmas characteristics of the Teja element. Similarly, Vayu, the air element, has 8 dharmas. Tiryagyanam, Pavitratvam, Akshepo, Nodanam Balam, Chalamachayata, Rauksham, Vayor Dharma, Pratakvidaha. So ability to move in any direction, purify and clean, ability to throw objects around, ability to impel and drive things, an innate strength, all the time in movement, etc., dryness, and so on. These are the dharmas of the Vayu element, it says. And lastly, Akasha, it has 3 dharmas. Sarvato Gatiravyuho Avishtambascheti Tetrayaha Akasha Dharma Vyakhyata Purva Dharma Vilakshanaha. So what are these differentiating dharmas, characteristics of the Akasha element? Sarvato Gati, it is present everywhere, all pervading Akasha. So it is a space element that is completely present everywhere. Technically, there is also calling it space is maybe in some sense it is inaccurate because in the Nyaya Shastra there is another term for space which is known as dik. But in general, Akasha is what we will perceive as space in which the guna is known as Shabda. So Sarvato Gatihi, Avyuho, indivisibility. It is one. It is not made up of parts. Avishtamba. So it does not have any support or alambanam. It doesn't require anything to hold it. So it is avishtamba. So these are the 3 Akasha dharmas. So going back to our sentence of Vyasa, where he said, Tatra Parthivadyaha Shabdadayo Visheshaha. So we looked at the Visheshas in terms of Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasagandha, different Visheshas related to them, different specifics, like the different sounds, different forms, colors, etc. These Visheshas, along with the Akaradibhi Dharmaihi, the characteristics beginning with Akara that we just went through, all the dharmas of Prithvi, the dharmas of Jala, the dharmas of Agni, the dharmas of Vayu, the dharmas of Akasha. So the Visheshas along with these dharmas, this is known as Sthula Rupa, Sthula aspect. So it is said, Sthula Sabdena Paribhashitaha Etad Bhutanam Pratamam Rupam. So this is the Sthula aspect, which is the combination of the Shabdadi Vishaya and the Akaradi Dharma, and Vyasa has explained. The first term, Sthula, in the Sutra refers to all of this.
So the Sthula Rupa is the gross form of the 5 elements which are metaphysical, of the metaphysical domain and realm. However, now we are going to the portal of it, at the outermost form of it. It is called gross. And this gross means something that we can enter into the realm of metaphysics from the outermost door of metaphysics. And that's why this outermost door or the portal is mentioned as gross. Now, this gross is introduced to us by the appearances form and functional form. The five elements have their natures whereby they manifest and then function in particular way, and then we get the feel of them. May not be able to sight, but we are able to get the feel of them. So that's the Prathamam Rupam, the first form, Prithvi. And you just now heard the Prithvi means we are introduced to the solid kind of matter. So the solid matter is opaque, it veils, it can obstruct our vision, etc. And it has that hardness, etc. So just now you heard from Srinit those qualities of Prithvi Tattva. And let me remind you that you should go back to what we had discussed earlier in the second chapter, Vishesha, Avishesha, Linga, and Alinga phases of Prakriti. So Vishesha was described there in details, and what you heard just now in brief was also delineated there earlier. So that's why this has been described as Vishesha of the Mahabhutas. So the functional form, what is the functional form of solid matter like Prithvi Tattva? And then we see that the Apa Tattva works differently. Its manifestation, its functional form. The functional form of Prithvi Tattva, functional form of Ap Tattva, functional form of Teja Tattva, Vayu Tattva, Akasha Tattva. The difference can be seen, and therefore we are now able to have some kind of comprehension of the outermost and grossest form of metaphysical entities. Otherwise, metaphysical entities are nominal. Therefore, they are called Mahabhutas, they are invisible. They are only cognized in Samadhi Prajna and not by ordinary perception. But however, the functional form can be felt by the human psyche. It is not tangible, but can be felt. So, Prithvi Tattva, you heard the characteristics. Then Ap Tattva, the liquid matter. So, Snehatvam, etc. The whiteness, the brightness, etc. So, that's how the Ap Tattva is mentioned. Then the Teja Tattva, Urva Gamanatvam, etc. So, the flame always points upwards. The flame will never point downwards or sidewards, but it will always point upwards. And if anything is said to be upwards, then Agni is used. That's why in Vedic Dharma there is something called as Urdhva Daihikam, the cremation, etc. After the death. The body is confined to fire. And it is because Agni takes the things upwards. Then the Vayu. So Vayu also has certain characteristics functionally. If you want to dry something, you open it out to air. Air must flow, the things dry. So the Vayu Tattva is also introduced at the outermost gate so that we can have some comprehension about these five elements, although they are invisible. And then Akasha, Avakasha Dayitvam, etc., all pervasiveness, etc. So these are the forms. They were discussed and described in greater details in the second chapter when we were dealing with the Prakriti Parva, Vishesha, particularized, unparticularized, marked phase, and unmarked phase. So this is referring to Vishesha Parva, the Vishesha aspects of Panchamahabhutas, and you just now heard from Srinit the certain characteristics mentioned to each of the five elements. Okay.
So, having explained the first aspect, Sthula, Vyasa continues. He says, Dvitiyam Rupam Swasamanyam. So what is this? The second. This is Murtihi Bhumihi. Sneho Jalam. Vannirushnata. Vayuh Pranami. Sarvatogatirakasha. Ityetat Swarupa Shabdena Uchyate. Swarupa is the essential aspect that is always present, even when the specifics of the specific manifestation of Prithvi, Apteja, etc. may differ. What is the Swasamanyam that is always present, which is the common aspect? So he says, Murtir Bhumihi. So Murti means a certain solid form. So Samhatattvam, Samsiddhikam Katinyam is Murti. So basically it is a certain solid form that is there, which is always there as a characteristic of Prithvi. So it says Murti Bhumihi. Sneho Jalam. Sneha means it's translated as Taralata or Taralyam. So that refers to the sort of the sparkle, glitter aspect of any liquid. So that is known as Sneha. So Sneho Jalam. Vannirushnata. For Teja, Agni or Vanni, the common aspect is Ushnata, heat. Vayuh Pranami. So for Vayu, the air element, it is Pranamitvam. What is that? The Prakarshena Nayati iti Pranami. So it is known as Vahanashilata, the ability to carry things with it, with the flow. So that is Vayu. So Vayu Pranami. Sarvato Gatir Akashaha. So Sarvato Gati means Sarvatra Upasthitihi, being present everywhere. Akasha. That is why it is known as a Vibhu element. So it is something that is all pervading, single. So that is Vibhu. So Sarvato Gati, Sarvatra Upasthitihi, Akasha. So all these enumerated aspects, characteristics, these are the Swasamanyam. Ityetat Swarupa Shabdena Uchyate. All of these are referred to by the term Swarupa. So with this, Vyasa has explained in brief what Swarupa means. Now he goes into certain further details. He says, Asya Samanyasya Shabdadayo Visheshaha. So with respect to these Samanya, the Visheshas are the specific differentiators in different this manifestation of Prithvi, that manifestation of Prithvi, etc. What differs? So those are the Shabdadayaha. So as we saw, there are Shadjagandharadi, Shabda Vishesha, Shitoshnadi, Sparsha Vishesha, etc. So there are differences in the specific color, specific sound, etc. So Asya Samanyasya Shabdadayo Visheshaha. Tatha Choktam. So now Vyasa quotes from Panchashika as one of the sutras. He says, Eka jati samanvitanam esham dharma matra vyavritihi. So these are all Eka jati samanvita. Means Prithvi has a one common aspect, and that commonality is known as Samanyam, also known as Jati. So Eka jati samanvitanam esham. While there is this commonality, the difference is only in terms of these characteristics like Shabdadaya Visheshaha. The specific attributes are only different. There is an underlying commonality. So Dharma Matra Vyavrittihi. Says Panchashikha. So iti Samanya Vishesha Samudayo Atra Dravyam. So now he says, Vyasa says, this combination, which is Samudaya, of Samanya, the common aspect, and Vishesha, the specific differentiating attributes. The combination of that is Dravya. Dravya means this is what is known as Dravya. Dravya is a sort of an entity, a thing. So what is anything, any given entity? What do we say? This is a thing, this is an entity. It says the Samanya Vishesha Samudaya, the combination of the common aspect, the commonality, which we just saw, and the Vishesha, which is Shabdadayo Vishesha, the specific Visheshas in terms of attributes. That combination of these, Samanya Vishesha Samudaya, is what is known as Dravyam, he says. Okay, so essentially, there is a slight kind of, in some sense, digression, or going slightly deeper to establish a certain point of view, a certain Siddhanta, where he's saying, as per the Yoga Shastra, this is what is the Dravya. And when he is doing that, he is also sort of countering what is held as Dravya in the Vaisheshika Shastra. Vaisheshika is another darshana, where, to be very brief, not covering in detail, usually a Dravya is said to be the sort of the substrate of the Samanya and Vishesha. So there is the Samanya, there is the Vishesha, and the substrate of that is Dravya, the Vaisheshikas would say. Whereas here Patanjali and Vyasa, they are saying the combination, the Samudaya of Samanya and Vishesha is what is Dravyam. So as we are seeing, as we have seen before in Vibhuti-pada, as different siddhis, etc. are touched upon, at the same time we are taught about the certain Siddhanta, certain points of view of the Yoga Shastra. So a bit of that is also happening here when Vyasa defines what a Dravya is according to Vyasa and Patanjali. But now, is every combination of Samanya Vishesha, is that a Dravya? Okay, so every Samuha is not a Dravya. And therefore, now Vyasa continues by saying what are the different types of Samuhas. He says, Dvishtho hi Samuhaha Pratyastamita Bhedavayava Anugataha. And so he says Samuha are of two types. One is Pratyastamita Bheda Avayava Anugataha, which means the Samuha, the group, or the group of things where the individual parts are not mentioned when the group is named or the group is mentioned. So, Shariram, Vriksho, Yutham, Vanam, iti. So, examples are Shariram, Vrikshaha, Yutham, Vanam, so body, a tree, a group, a forest, etc. So, when that name is given to the group, then the individual parts is not part of the naming. Okay, directly the group is mentioned. The second type is Shabdena Upatta Bheda Avayava Anugataha Samohaha, where the individual parts are specifically mentioned and the difference among the parts is specifically mentioned through the Shabda, through its naming. Okay. Now we can go into detail of this relationship between the naming and the thing itself, the Nama Rupa aspect. But we have touched upon that earlier when we talked about some of the Vyakarana, linguistic or the grammar aspects in the previous sutra, so we won't be doing that. Here the classification of groups right now is being in two, where the name of the group itself clearly specifies the parts and the differences among the parts, and where it is not specified. So first we saw the one where it is not specified, with the examples of Shariram, Vriksha, Yutham, Vanam, so body, tree, forest, etc., where just by the name of the group, we know that it is a group, it is a collection of things. But just by the naming of it, we don't know what the collection is constituted of. The other one is where the name itself clearly specifies. So there the example is Ubaye Deva Manushyaha. So when the group is named as Deva Manushyaha, the group we know is made up of Devas and Manushas. So this is the other type of group where the very naming or specification of it clearly specifies the different parts. Now, Samuhasya Deva Eko Bhago Manushya Dvitiyo Bhagaha Tabhyam Eva Vidhiyate Samuhaha. So he elaborates on the same thing, wherein the Samuha, in the group, Deva is one part, Manushas are another part. And by these two, the group itself is named. The group is named as Deva Manushya. The group which is Deva Manushyaha. So we often will say ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, etc. So the parts of the group is directly part of the name. In Sanskrit, you don't have to put an and because ladies and gentlemen is 3 words. In Sanskrit, you can combine terms to coin a new word or a compound word. And therefore, here Deva Manushyaha is used as the name of the group. Now further, such a Bheda Bheda Vivakshitaha. So now the naming or the Vivaksha means the desire to convey. What the speaker means to convey is known as Vivaksha. Vaktumicha Vivaksha. What I imply, that is Vivaksha. So now there is a Bheda Vivaksha, Abheda Vivaksha. Bheda means the difference, each part being treated differently. So that is Bheda Vivaksha. Abheda Vivaksha, where the intent of the speaker is not to bring out the difference. Again, there is an example. For Bheda Vivaksha, it is Amranam Vanam, Brahmananam Sangha. Amranam Vanam means a forest of mango trees. So Amranam Vanam, Brahmananam Sangha, group of Brahmanas. In the very way that it is named, it is a Bheda Vivaksha. It is clearly mentioned that the group, the parts that constitute the group are different. So it is a group of mango trees and so on. Then there is a Amravanam or Brahmana Sangha. In this naming, the way it is broken down in Sanskrit, you'll say Amraha Eva Sangha, Amraha Eva Vanam, Brahmanaha Eva Sangha. So the group of the mango trees is itself the group. So the mango trees themselves constitute the forest. So that is the implication when you say Amravanam. Whereas when you say Amranam Vanam, you say forest made up of mango trees. So in one, the difference between the group and the parts is clearly spelled out. In the other, it is the parts themselves constitute the group. So it is Amravanam Brahmana Sangha iti. So hopefully it is somewhat clear what that Vyasa is saying and I am trying to convey. Now, further going into this group, just to remember the context, we are discussing because Vyasa says that Samanya Vishesha Samudayo Atra Dravyam. Dravya is just a group of the common aspect and the Vishesha, Samanya Visheshas. Then we are wondering whether each and every group itself becomes a Dravya or a thing. So to understand that better, there is only a certain type of group that becomes a Dravya. Now to arrive at that, we are looking at the various types of groupings. So that is what is going on. So now, there is a further thing to understand. Sa punaha dvividho. Again, there are 2 types. Yuta siddha avayava, ayuta siddha avayavascha. So, avayava means parts. So, the yuta siddha avayava and ayuta siddha avayava. Yuta siddha avayavaha samuhaha vanam sangaha iti. Ayuta siddha avayavaha sanghataha shariram vrikshaha paramanuriti. So, in the yuta siddha avayava, the examples or the samuha group which is termed as yuta siddha avayava, examples given are forest or sangha. Sangha means sort of a group, a community, a group of people. So here what is the classification being done? In a yuta siddha avayava samuha, the parts are separable. So if it's a community or a forest, each tree can be separated or each person in the community can be separated. So the parts are clearly separable and form an entity of its own. In ayuta siddha avayava samuha, the examples are shariram, vrikshaha, paramanuhu iti. So shariram, body, vrikshaha, tree, paramanuhu. So now each of them, they also have parts. However, these parts do not stand alone separately. They are sort of inseparable. They form a part of the group, but they are an essential part of the group. Outside of it, they don't have their own complete existence. Whereas in a community, each person that forms the group has their own complete separate existence. Whereas in the body, if you cut off the hand is not a separate entity after having been cut off. It is not the same as it was as part of the group. Whereas a person out considered separately from the community is still a complete person, as complete as he was when part of the group. So that is a Yuta Siddha Samoha and Ayuta Siddha Samoha. Interestingly, in the example, Shariram, Vriksha and Paramanu has also been mentioned. Paramanu refers to sort of the smallest indivisible part. So what is referred to generally as atom, because it cannot be further split. A logical indivisible entity. So here, since it has been mentioned, there is certain elaboration made by other further commentators. They said, Paramanunam api panchachataradi tanmatra samuhatayaha vakshamanatvat iti bhavaha. So here we see that, okay, Vyasa believes that Paramanu is also considered a samuha, a group. Why? Because each Paramanu is made up of certain tanmatras. So the Prithvi Paramanu, the atomic element of the earth element, or the atom of the earth element, is made up of 5 tanmatras, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha tanmatras. Whereas the Jala is made up of 4, all except Gandha. The Teja, the Agni, it is made up of 3, all except Gandha and Rasa, like we had seen. Vayu is made up of 2, only Sparsha and Shabda. Then Akasha, only 1 of the Shabda Tanmatra. So the Paramanu also, incidentally, we see that it is seen as a Samuha, as a group, as constituted of something. Now, Vyasa is concluding. He says, Ayutta Siddha Avayava Bhedanugataha Samuha Dravyam iti Patanjali. He says. So Vyasa is saying, as per Patanjali, it is the Ayuta Siddha Avayava Bheda Anugata Samuha, which is a Dravya. So it is that particular Samuha. When we said Samanya Vishesha Samuho Atra Dravyam, Vyasa is further clarifying to us that it is that Samuha whose parts are not separately are not separable. So there's a nice phrase in English that this is in a different context, in the Vishishtadvaita context, where Apratak Siddhi is mentioned, which is the same concept. There is a term by some English author or translator who has said those parts or entities that are separate but not separable. So that is the exact connotation here. So that group, that collection is a dravya if its parts are separate, which means it has parts, but they are not separable. So apratak siddha avayava bhedo. So that is what is dravya as per Patanjali. And dravya is not a third separate entity, as the Vaisheshikas would say. It is not separate from the samanya, the common aspects, and the vishesha, the distinguishing attributes. It is just this combination of samanya and the vishesha, and only those things are dravyas whose parts are ayuta siddha avayava bheda anugata, which means consisting of parts that are not separable. So that is known as a dravya as per Patanjali. Then etat swarupam ityuktam. So this concludes the further elaboration of the second of the aspects mentioned in the sutras. We have seen stula. Now we have also covered swarupa. Etat swarupam ityuktam.
So we come to the second form called swarupam. Now how to have entry into this terse matter. One of the simple examples is that suppose I cut my finger and I bleed and there's blood dropping on the floor. The common man, you and me, would say this is blood. That's all. And we don't have any further inquiry into it. And we say this is blood. So blood is a substance. Now reference here is to substantive form. Now what is blood? Which is a matter of inquiry for a pathologist or a hematologist. So we would refer to that drop on the floor as blood. But then what is that blood? Blood report will tell us that there are so many things which are constituting what we call generally as blood. And common man stops here. Common man doesn't go into inquiry into what is really blood. So the hepatologist will tell us the blood is composed of what? So there are certain things and elements which are composing what generally is referred to as blood. The common man has nothing to do with those constituents of blood, except when there is a pathological condition and somebody goes for blood test and report comes, and one is interested to know how the different ingredients of blood, in what kind of imbalance they are, etc. If I give you a glass of water, you just take it as a water and you have certain perception to confirm that it is water. Water has particular form. If that form is there, you say, yes, it is water, and you consume the water. But little scientific view will tell us that it is H2O. So we ask for water. We don't ask for a combination or electrical fusion of 2 units of hydrogen and 1 unit of oxygen. But the fact of the matter is, water is constituted by what is scientifically called or labeled as H2O. Now what is it? H is hydrogen. And what is O? O is oxygen. But the common man loses the sight of that essential form of the water, which is next to the grosser form. Because again, hydrogen oxygen is not essential, because hydrogen is also made up of something and oxygen is made up of something. But that goes into deeper physics and up to particle physics, etc. But we don't bother about hydrogen and oxygen, which constitutes water. Common man doesn't cite it. It comes in glass of water. But I cannot give you hydrogen in a glass and oxygen in a glass. I will have to give you hydrogen in a cylinder and oxygen in a cylinder, not in a glass. So what is water is H2O. What is blood? Blood has so many constituents in it, hemoglobin to so many things, which you will be able to see in a blood report, which gives you a list of 8, 10, 12 chemicals and substances which constitute the blood. So, little deeper insight will tell us that water is one substance for us. But little insight will tell us that there are 2 elements in it, which is hydrogen and oxygen in particular proportion and with electrical fusion. Then that is water. But we don't look at that electrical fusion. The water comes to us in a glass, and then we can quench our thirst and we can have our wash, etc. So we don't generally in our normal walk of life go into deeper depth of matters which we handle and we deal with. But in science, we are told about it. And the science inquires about it and science reveals about it. So that's the substantive form. In little deeper aspect of visible form. So water is essentially electrical fusion of hydrogen oxygen. Now, this is not cited by common man. So that's how we are now shown the second form, which is called substantive form. And in our business activity of life, we are so gross. A tree is one object for us. The tree is one object for us. A body is one object for us. But the tree is made up of certain components such as roots, trunk, bark, branches, barks, leaves, fruits, flowers. But we refer to as a tree. The tree is one object, but then, as a matter of fact, there are these aspects which constitute a tree, which makes a tree or even a body. The body is one thing for us. So we say this is human being. But the fact of the matter is that there are limbs, lower limbs, upper limbs, trunk and head, the senses, etc. So many things come together to make a body. So many things come together to make a tree. But for us in our walk of normal worldly walk of life, we say tree is one object. It is one thing. Body is one thing. But little insight will tell us it is not one thing. Body is one object for us, but then it is constituted by some hundreds of trillions of cells. We don't refer to it. So as about the tree, then so also there is about forest. The forest has so many kinds of trees. We say this is a forest. But then forest has so many trees. Different classes of trees will be there. But when it comes to a particular mango grove, then there are all mango trees. There are all mango trees of one class. But there are 8, 10, 20, 100, 200 mango trees there. Then each tree is made up of parts. So this is not cited by us in our practicality of life. And therefore our perceptions and comprehensions are very, very superficial. While now the insight, a yogi who has insight will be having different vision. So certain things are, as you just now heard, Yuta Siddha Sambandha, Ayuta Siddha Sambandha, separable and inseparable parts. So, in a forest, the forest is forest. But suppose somebody goes and cuts one tree and takes away, yet it remains a forest. One tree is gone, but still it remains a forest. So it is separable. And therefore, you just now heard about Yuta Siddha, Ayuta Siddha Sambandham. Now in water, hydrogen and oxygen can be in separate containers. But when they come in form of water, it is electrical fusion. So you cannot separate hydrogen and oxygen. You cannot just say that I will take only hydrogen from water or only oxygen from water. It is electrical fusion. So somewhere they are inseparable. Like you heard about human body, arm is a part of body. But if the arm is cut and it is falling away from the body, the arm itself doesn't remain a body now. The body is there, but the body is not complete. It is incomplete. It is without one limb. So somewhere there are separable and there are inseparable aspects, and you heard this discussion which comes in metaphysics, such as Pratak Siddha Sambandha, Apratak Siddha Sambandha, Yuta Siddha Sambandha, Ayuta Siddha Sambandha. So you heard that those things with examples as Srineet cited. So little insight is needed. We must have inquisitiveness to have little insight. Otherwise, we will never know water is a gaseous matter more substantively, because both are gases. Hydrogen is a gas, oxygen is a gas. But we don't cite it. We just look at water as liquid matter. Then if you go to hydrogen, you go to the atomic structure and the nucleus of it. Then oxygen, similarly, atomic structure of it and the nucleus. So we know the atoms and molecules and subatomic particles. So when in a deeper inquiry, we get to know different things. The common man doesn't need these things in business activity of life. We want water as water, that's all. So the substantive form is the second form, which tells us that there is little more insight than the empirical perception has. So that's the second form, and you've heard those little terse aspects such as Yuta Siddha, what is Dravyam, what is Yuta Siddha Sambandham, Ayuta Siddha Sambandham. So that's how the Dravyam is defined. What is Dravyam according to Patanjali? And you heard about the Dravyam in other philosophical systems such as Tarka, the Vaisheshikas. So the Dravya, that's the substance. We don't bother about substance in our worldly walk of life. We want appearance and functional form of something. It is so dazzling that it doesn't give slightest clue that we must be penetrating it towards substantive form. Whereas scientific mind will have that. Philosophical mind will have that. So common man is not used to scientific mind. Common man is not used to understanding for philosophical mind. So they speak about substance. They want to know what the thing really is. So appearance of form and essential form are two things. In normal walk of life, we don't have to be going for essential form of something because we just want to deal with appearance and functional form. And that's how we are in shallow knowledge waters. Now, here we are told about second form, which itself is little terse for us, difficult to comprehend. So that's why I gave you an example of blood. Blood is one thing. But for hematologist, the blood is constituted by so many ingredients, substances, chemicals, and that compound is called blood. Another example, simple example I gave you is about water. So this is therefore referred to as substantive form. The substance and substantive form, this you have to understand. We don't look for substance of anything and everything. Little inquiry will tell us about substance of something. That means that's how the wisdom, the sign of wisdom evolved. When you look at the substance of something, which is not as the thing appears, but as the thing is. So the things are not as they appear, but the things are as they are. This is what a mystic philosopher tells us, a poet tells us. And that's why substantive form is essential to understand what the thing is and how it is, essentially. So that's the substantive form, which is inquired by scientists, and then philosophers and metaphysicists. So that is the substantive form. Okay.
Okay. We'll stop here for today and continue with the sutra and the bhashya in the next session. Let's recite the slokas on Guruji and stop for today. वैज्ञानिकं प्रवक्तृत्व आसनेषु कलाविदं योगाभ्यासे च तत्त्वज्ञं वन्देऽहं सुन्दरं गुरुं योगवृक्षो हि लोकेऽस्मिन् यत्प्रेरणेन वर्धितः योगाचार्यगुरो तुभ्यं सुन्दराय नमो नमः. Thank you.
Namaskar all of you.